So hello and welcome back to Go Again Gaming, and this is probably going to be one of the first videos on the channel which is not Flesh and Blood related. And from the thumbnail you'll see that this is all about Shadowheart from Baldurs Gate 3. Now, a lot of us in this sort of geeky community have been rinsing Baldurs Gate 3 as of late. I don't know how many hours I've got on the game so far, but I got it last week or last week or the week before as a result of doing the podcast, the Flesh and Blood podcast that I do, the Living Legends podcast with the boys. They definitely recommended me getting it, and I have not turned back since. And this game is just absolutely incredible, and I haven't felt this way about a game for the longest time, since Divinity Original Sin 2. And Divinity Original Sin 2 I didn't even complete, but Baldurs Gate 3 I'm definitely going to be completing. It's just because the stories and the characters development and everything else is just so good from the off. And Shadowheart is a lot, at the centre of a lot of our games, a lot of our hearts, no pun intended, at the moment. And her story is fantastic, and I have just basically wrapped up her story, and she's gone through an absolute arc in the game. And I just wanted to do a little video regarding that arc, regarding that story, and just recapping some of the main points of the entire story that Shadowheart goes through, essentially. And what we were doing in this game as well, we were romancing Shadowheart at the same time as going through her entire story. I'm not sure whether you need to romance Shadowheart in order to unlock a lot of these options and dialogues, but I think it does make it easier to achieve all of these things if you are very, very high in her estimations. So yeah, there was a lot of romancing, of course. A lot of people are romancing Shadowheart, and fair play to you, because you have great taste. She is hot diggity dog, let's be honest. And we'll get into it. And a quick disclaimer as well, we are going to be focusing on Shadowheart's story and Shadowheart's tale, so we're not really going to be touching on the main story. We may do from time to time, but this is all about the Daughter of Darkness. But yeah, obviously the game starts off, obviously you're aboard the Nautiloid, and you're in these pods, and it's not just you in these pods that are being held captive by the Illithids. It's you and loads of other heroes as well that you obviously meet throughout your journey as well. And Shadowheart is one of those characters that you can save very, very early on and add to your party very, very early on. So yeah, you meet her aboard the Nautiloid, and she's also infected with one of the parasites, and it's just an absolute amazing start of the game. Really is. Just really, really drags you in straight away. The cinematics were just absolutely awesome, and obviously the combat and what have you is just so addictive, so simple, so addictive, and very tactical as well. Every single battle you can approach in a different way, and it's just absolutely awesome. But yeah, we basically find out that Shadowheart needs to reach Baldurs Gate to fulfill a mission for her goddess. So she basically worships the goddess Shar, which is like the goddess of pain and loss. So it's a bit of a dark god. And not really something you do want to be worshipping, to be honest. But we go into the story as to why and how she sort of is led down to that point, essentially. But yeah, she needs to go to Baldurs Gate 3 to fulfill a mission for Shar. Although the details of that mission are a mystery to us, we don't know, and I don't think we ever know what the mission is. Obviously, look at my notes here. I don't think we ever find out what that mission is, on this arc that we're going through. So yeah, if you would have seen the thumbnail already, you will know that obviously this arc of Shadowheart is like a redeeming arc. She starts off on a bit of a dark path, she goes to dark places, but ultimately she comes out the end of it an absolute hero. But I reckon it could probably go a different way. I'm probably going to try and play through another time and try and choose new options with new characters and stuff. But this arc is just perfect for my sort of likes. And since this first game that I went through, I was doing everything as if I would do it, essentially. But yeah, so we don't know what the mission is, I don't think, ever. But she's on her way to Baldur's Gate to fulfill a mission for her goddess. And as we're travelling through Faerun towards Baldur's Gate, obviously the journey starts. Obviously, there's a load of quests and what have you that we get given. And obviously, we land on this with the Nautiloid crash lands on this island, and obviously the game starts, and you can go around and do different things and what have you. And while we're travelling with Shadowheart, she becomes stricken by like an unusual surge of pain emanating from a tiny unhealed wound on her hand. So every now and again, she'll just start. Like her hand will just start hurting and glowing purple. So we witness that and we're just like, okay, what's going on here? We're traveling with her. She's got a mission that she needs to go to, and every now and again she starts holding her hand in agony and pain and loss. So yeah, we get a bit sort of invested into why Shadowheart just starts hurting for no reason whatsoever. So obviously we get closer to her and try and find the source of that pain, but she's quite secretive, doesn't really give much away, and that's another reason why the character is really, really sort of endearing to a lot of us, and me specifically as well in this video, is because she's just enigmatic as well. You know, there's a lot of mystery surrounding her. We'll get to another part of her story, of course, in a moment, but she has this artifact that she's got that she doesn't really give the answers to. I mean, you can ask her. She's got this artifact. She's got these weird wounds that keep hurting, and she's got this artifact. And you can ask her, like, you know, tell me what the artifact is. You're hiding something. But there's this whole thing where if I think it was in Unleashed. There's a film called Unleashed from Jet Li and Morgan Freeman. Comment in the section below if you've seen it. But I think Morgan Freeman says something like, you don't need to pry for someone to give you the answers. When they're ready to give you the answers to whatever it is they're going through, they will tell you if they trust you. You don't need to pry for information. Once the person is comfortable with you, they will tell you these things. And I think that's the same thing with Shadowheart's story here. Is I could see that she was in pain randomly. I could see that she was, you know, handling this artifact. You know, if you go back to camp on Baldur's Gate, you'll see like a little, you'll see Shadowheart just in the corner, just like trying to figure out what this box is and trying to sort of open it and do these things. But you just have to leave these people and leave these characters to their devices and gain their trust, and eventually they'll tell you. But yeah, she's an enigmatic character, and she's one of those characters that you just need to figure out and let them come around to you on your own, which I think is great. I mean, another reason why this game is so good is not only does it have sexy characters, but it has deep and meaningful conversations and story development, which is the whole reason why we're doing this video and sharing it with you. She tries to hide the fact as well that she's having these pains in her hand, and as a result of that, we do deduct that she is worshipping the goddess Shar. So she is hiding a lot of secrets. She is one of those characters that needs to be solved and sort of explored. But my approach in the game was exactly what I just said just a moment ago. Just, you know, let the things come out naturally. Let her sort of tell us what's going on as we travel further into the game and sort of, you know, trust each other more as such. As we go on, again with regards to this arc, we are, you know, trying to get to know Shadowheart in a more personal, intimate way, because let's be honest, she's hot diggity dog, and if you were traveling with her, you probably would. Let's be honest. But yeah, we were trying to sort of escalate the friendship into something more ASAP, because we wanted to make sure that we could get in there. You know, because, yeah, who wouldn't, you know? She's just absolutely enigmatic, attractive, and just, yeah. Anyway, I digress. But yeah, we're romancing her at this point. And she then tells us that she had allowed her memory to be suppressed so she can serve Shar without compromising her. So in her past as well, she said that she doesn't really remember stuff because she allowed her memory to be suppressed to try and serve her goddess better without compromising her. And we also discover that obviously a lot of people that worship Shar do not really share these things. And again, that's also a bit of a revelation. So when Shadowheart comes to us and says, I worship Lady Shar, the goddess of loss and pain, and it's not something we really divulge, You know, as a player, as a sort of person who's, you know, controlling the main character, having Shadowheart say that to us in the story is actually quite fulfilling, because obviously you know that she's trying to hide some stuff. She's got some mysterious pain in her hand, and she's got this weird artifact, and suddenly she's telling you that her memories have been suppressed. She's telling you that she worships the goddess Shar, and she shouldn't really be saying these things. It's just very, very rewarding to sort of go down these dialogue paths and really explore what is going on with Shadowheart. But yeah, she had her memories suppressed, and obviously she's telling us all this, and she also told us about all the pain and the mysterious wound as well, and she believes that it may be part of her training, punishing her whenever she strays from Shar's teachings. So this is something that happens as well throughout the games. Obviously she gets more and more pain in her hand whenever she's not really following Shar's teachings, and she starts to sort of stray from that and starts to get more hopeful, get more jolly when you start going down the romance path and start doing these other things with her as well. And that's when she starts hurting. That's when she starts getting these sort of reminders from her goddess that you should not be doing this. You should not be allowing other people into your life. You should not be allowing the hope and the light and stuff in. And that's just the great thing about this bloody whole arc, is that the light does come in, and it's just absolutely amazing transformation. She also reveals to us on the journey, as we just keep going through the game and romancing and stuff and getting more trust, she starts giving us her dreams and aspirations now. She reveals to us that she has long dreamed of becoming a dark justiciar. A dark justiciar is basically like a trained hyper combatant for Shar. So she has had dreams for a while of becoming a dark justiciar. And I was getting these sort of feelings and comparisons while I was doing this game. I was getting feelings and comparisons towards sort of Star Wars and the Dark Lord of the Sith and the Jedi and stuff. I was just getting all these feelings, and I just thought it was absolutely sick. She had this aspiration, you know, she's got this pain, she's enigmatic, there's mystery behind her, and her goal is to become a dark justiciar. You know, and if you weren't sort of romancing her, if you weren't romancing Shadowheart, and you know you weren't really connecting with her, and she said, "I want to become a dark justiciar," you'll be like, "No chance. I don't know what the dark justiciar is, but you're not becoming a dark justiciar, mate. That sounds horrendous." But yeah, she's got this dream of becoming one of these dark justiciars, and you just have to be like, okay, well, if that's what you want to do, you know, as a character that's romancing Shadowheart and trying to support her in her decisions to make, and again, allow her to discover herself, because she's suppressed, her memories are suppressed. She's withdrawn. She's not trusting anybody. This whole arc comes full circle later on, and it's just absolutely sick. So yeah, you have to support her. You have to be like, okay, well, we can go down the route of seeing what the path of a dark justiciar is. I'm here for you for that, and then we'll just cross that bridge when it happens. And that's exactly what we do. So she opens up to us that she wants to become this dark knight justiciar type character. And then she speaks to us about the Mother Superior, her mentor, and the leader of the Cloister of Shar worshippers, which we get to in a bit as well later on. And the mysterious figure that raised and trained Shadowheart was the Mother Superior, which is this mysterious character that was the one that brought up Shadowheart and trained her in the ways of the Lady of Loss and all that sort of good stuff. So we hear about the Mother Superior as well. But yeah, as I mentioned before, with regards to the artifact, we do see her sort of tinkering with this artifact all the time in camp, and obviously there is another dialogue section where we actually find out. Well, we don't find out what it is, but we find out that obviously she's got something, and she's like, "Oh, what's that there? You know, what is that artifact that you've got?" And she seems to be again refusing to answer our questions on what it is. We don't know what it is, and again, it adds more and more layers to this character, because not only has she got this weird pain in her hand, she's got this weird artifact. She's been brought up by Mother Superior. She wants to be a dark justiciar. You know, she's got all this information that she's holding back from us. It just makes us want to explore that character more, but not push that character either. We want her to give us the answers in her own accord. That's exactly what happens in this whole quest line, is that we just have to make sure that she's discovering these things on her own, and we are just there for her in those times. That's exactly how I was, and I approached it while romancing her as well, that allowed us to get to this outcome at the end. So yeah, she got the strange artifact, she's messing around with it, but she doesn't tell us what it is. And then we learned that the Mother Superior herself is the one who inflicted Shadowheart with the mysterious wound, does not heal. So we find out that Mother Superior is the one that that inflicted Shadowheart with the wound that keeps weeping all the time, and yeah, she's been gripped with that intense pain a lot of the times throughout this journey, and on many occasions. This has become to prove a liability if we cannot help her. So there's this. Every now and again, she will just go, it hurts. The gods this petty, or something like that. Oh, that the gods this petty goes into the arc later. But yeah, just going through the campaign, going through the story, she does just keep hurting every now and again. But we know that it's down to the Mother Superior. We wanted to basically say to Shadowheart, right, we got to try and find a way to get rid of this pain for you. And she was just like, well, no, it's all part of the indoctrination of Shah. It's all part of the Lady of Loss's campaign, and testing trials and cloisters of trials and all this sort of thing. Very Final Fantasy X-esque with the cloister of trials. We'll get to that later as well. But yeah, she just didn't want to have any of it. She didn't want to be cured of this pain that she has to endure. It's just like a reminder that Shah is the goddess of loss, the goddess of pain. You have to carry these horrible things in order to survive, which I think is also an interesting way to look at it. Shadowheart's perspective is you have to deal with pain and loss all the time, and she is dealing with pain and loss. We get to discover a bit of her past in a moment, which is also clouded from her as well at the same time, which is just, again, a massive revelation to the whole thing as well. So with regards to the adventure, we carry on, we keep going through, and we realise that obviously we're getting closer and closer to Shadowheart at this point. And I think it's after we share a little moment, after we save the sort of the grove from the goblin scourge. My character, who is Azalea, if that name means anything to you, then fair enough. If not, then don't worry about it. But my character and Shadowheart have a moment in the forest, and they share a kiss and what have you. And then the next day they're just like, oh wow, we had a kiss. What does that mean? Do you want to pursue anything? He was like, yeah, I want to pursue something. I want to carry on. It's all part of the plan. So yeah, that went really well. Obviously, it was a nice little moment in the forest there between Shadowheart and my character. I absolutely smashed the insight test, which told me that Shadowheart was looking for that kiss in the moment. So I was just like, yes, insight test succeeded, and I'm leaning in for that kiss, baby. I'm going in. And we did. And the relationship blossomed from there. I was getting more and more higher in Shadowheart's estimations, and as a result, she was then starting to open up about everything, and really, really trusting my player character, which was great. And she decides to share an old memory with us, and we connect through the tadpole for this sort of reenaction of the memory. And as I mentioned before, her memories are suppressed. She doesn't remember everything, so we don't get the full story. But I think the memory that is shared is one of the few that were spared from the amnesia. But we saw her as a small child, a lost child, being pursued by a wolf through a dark forest. Some Shah worshippers as well, led by the masked Mother Superior, came to her rescue and took her into their care. So basically, she had a run-in with a ghastly wolf of the forest, and these Shah worshippers seemingly came to her rescue and saved her from the wolf. In this memory, which is why she's been taken in by the Shah worshippers and Lady of Loss and what have you, because of this memory that we see here. And that makes sense to us in the moment, because we're like, okay, right, she's been taken in by the Lady of Loss worshippers, she was scared of this wolf, and suddenly that's the reason why she's been taken in by the Mother Superior, taken in by the sort of legions of Shah to then worship this goddess, because she got saved by them. and which is fair enough. You know, you're grateful for your saviors, no matter what form they come in. You know. So again, that was cool to see that and sort of understand why and how and where she really got onto this path to worship Lady Shar and appreciate the god, even in the sheer fact, and despite the fact that she is the goddess of loss and pain, she is grateful because her worshippers saved her from the wolf in the forest when she was little. So yeah, they're obviously the Shar worshippers took her into their care. And obviously she's been worshipping Shar ever since and having these dreams and becoming a dark justiciar, as we mentioned earlier. As we carry on going through the adventure, we do end up in some caverns with some outlaws, the Zentarim caverns, I believe they are called. And this is where we actually get a little bit of a payoff on that memory, on that thread, because there are huge wolves in the Zentarim caverns, and there's a moment where Shadowheart is just absolutely petrified of those wolves. She gains the frightened condition when you walk next to them, which I thought was absolutely awesome. I was like, why is she frightened? Oh yeah, because she was tormented by the wolves in her young age, you know, which has led her to be on the journey that she's on right now in this moment. And it's just absolutely fantastic to see that come to fruition after the memory was shared with us, because of the fact we are putting loads of effort into getting to know Shadowheart throughout the campaign here. So all the while we're travelling, of course, we get to know Shadowheart a lot more, and she opens up about the fact that she wants to find this Dark Justiciar lair, because that's one of her dreams, one of her aspirations, is to become or go down the path of a Dark Justiciar, to see where that leads her. That is her calling at the moment, is to see how she can become a Dark Justiciar and pledge her allegiance to Shar for the rest of her life. You know, that is one of her things. She wants to go down the Dark Justiciar route, and we are there to support her no matter what happens with that. She's been told by a member of the party of Halsin that there was an army of Dark Justiciars that waged war against the followers of Selûne long ago, and the rites of becoming a Dark Justiciar are no mean feat. They must have a substantial layer in order to train and amount a force of such a size. So Halsin gives us this thread that there's probably a Dark Justiciar layer around here, around Faerun, because the Dark Justiciars, it was a huge sort of onboarding process to become a Dark Justiciar. You couldn't just become one easily. You had to go through all of these trials, and you had to go through all of these, we'll get to this later, all of these sort of tests and tribulations to become a Dark Justiciar. And he believes that there is a huge shrine, huge sort of temple that is dedicated to them around here. So yeah, Shadowheart really sort of engages with that thread, and we do actually stumble across Grimforge, which is a giant sort of temple establishment that actually does have Shar elements in there. So it's like a lost ruin almost. It has like a fort, like a giant lava forge in there, and it also has these large Shar statues, and there's loads of Shar stuff everywhere, and that leads us onto the scent of, oh okay, is the Dark Justiciar temple or the Dark Justiciar lair around close by? And Shadowheart, of course, is very, very interested in exploring it, and so we do obviously just try and explore every aspect of this forge and this sort of ruin to make sure that all sort of loose ends are tied up. So we enter that massive fortress that may have been dedicated to Shar. We could be close to the lair, and obviously Shadowheart is very excited to try and find this lair. And we do actually find a lot of struggle and dead Dark Justiciars, essentially. We found loads of dead Dark Justiciars. You got, obviously, if you loot their corpses, you can find Justiciar helms, Justiciar armor, and Shadowheart is like, oh wow, these were Justiciars. Shar must have been worshipped here, she was like. And Shadowheart suggested that we obviously search for more answers, and I'm like, yeah, we're definitely going to search this place. And I was trying to search the whole bloody place because I was determined to finish this quest line for for Shadowheart, and I did not know at this point that I wasn't even halfway through. So yeah, that's why I'm just recapping it now, because I absolutely love the experience we've had so far. It's fantastic. But yeah, I searched that whole goddamn place to make sure that we could cap off and make sure that there was nothing, that there was no Dark Justicia stone left unturned. So yeah, we searched the whole place, and yeah, we found a lot of traces of hellish fiends. Could they have killed the Dark Justiciars? If so, where is their Temple of Shah? So we do find that in this sort of forge, in this sort of place, this ruin that we find along our journey, there's a lot of dead Dark Justiciars, and it looks like they've been killed by some hellish, fiendish forces, and that their temple should be, and hopefully, close by. So yeah, we continue on the journey, and we do end up in the Shadowlands. So the Shadowlands is just like this place which is just steeped in what's called a shadow curse, and everybody who steps into it just basically dies over a short period of time. But Shadowheart, for some reason, does possess a lot of resistance to those ill effects of the Shadow Curse, it seems. Like when we walk into the Shadowlands, she thinks, oh, okay, why am I not immune to this? We have this little conversation that you have with her, and she's like, I just don't feel the effects of this Shadow Curse. Maybe it's due to my patronage, my sort of allegiance to Shah, given the mercutial nature of the Dark Goddess. But it just seems that Shadowheart is basically immune to the effects of the Shadow Curse, which is good, which is nice, because obviously in that part of the game you do have to keep everybody close together, otherwise you're just going to get rinsed by this Shadow Curse. And that was a cool little excursion on that part of the game as well, is just exploring the Shadowlands and making sure that you don't stray anyone too far from the path, because they just die. So you have to keep everybody together, which is a cool little part. But yeah, so with regards to the character development, obviously we're still romancing Shadowheart at this stage. We're still talking to her about loads of different things and trying to romance her and all this sort of stuff. And there was a moment as well that we shared with Shadowheart where we actually managed to find out what her favourite flowers are. And we also managed to find out that she's never swam in water in her entire life, both of which get paid off massively, towards the end of the arc. But yeah, we actually find one of these flowers that Shadowheart absolutely loves. It's called a night orchid, and we find this in the Shadowlands, and we give it to Shadowheart, and we remember the story that she told us about. The fact that she loves night orchids, and we give that night orchid to Shadowheart, which obviously brings her up in her estimations even further. And of course, she really appreciates the gesture there as well. So all the while romancing, while travelling, and all this sort of stuff, we find her favourite flower, and we give that to her to also just sort of consolidate that relationship that we're building, and the trust that is also building as well in this game for her. So yeah, we carry on going through the adventure, and we find a ancient temple where lots of Dark Justiciars are dead outside of the temple. So we actually do want to explore this. We find that in the Shadowlands there is this temple, this thing. And it turns out that in the Shadowlands there is the Dark Justicia Temple. We find it in the Shadowlands, and obviously Shadowheart at this stage is just like, this is it. This must be the cloister of trials to become a Dark Justicia. And as we get closer to that revelation, to the Dark Justicia situation, it does get a little bit more scary for us as the player, because obviously we care about Shadowheart at this stage. We don't know what this Dark Justicia path will lead her down, and it starts to get a little bit scary because we feel like, we might lose her to this Dark Justicia dream. What does it even entail? What does it mean? So as we get closer to the source of that answer, it does get a little bit sort of cagey with regards to Shadowheart's relationship as well. She, when you start talking to her outside of the quests and what have you, if you go back to camp, she's like, "Oh, my mind's just not in the right place at the moment. Just bear with me because I'm trying to search for this Dark Justiciar thing." And you know, you have to really bear with it. You can't sort of push her anyway. You have to continue that I am always here for you, but not pushing you situation with this character, because that is what builds their trust. This is one of those characters that has a lot going on. They have their own dreams, their own aspirations they want to try and achieve, and you just have to be there for them while they discover that themselves. You can't really get in the middle of that. You have to just let it happen, and that's what we do. So yeah, we discover the what is called the Gauntlet of Shar, which is a huge ancient temple dedicated to the dark goddess of loss, Shar, and Shadowheart obviously wants to explore this temple massively, so we have to go in there and really sort of explore it to try and cap off this this whole journey for Shadowheart, or so it seems, before it spirals into another journey for her completely. But yeah, we find out that this is the legendary Gauntlet of Shar. It is a proving ground where initiates would seek to become Dark Justiciars, and after investigating an altar, we learn that a series of trials must be overcome in order to be anointed a warrior of Shar, and Shadowheart, of course, wishes to complete the trials in order to become a Dark Justiciar herself. There's multiple trials and tests and stuff in this place that we have to go through. So after we've completed all these trials and explored the temple and what have you, we actually do find a altar where you can pray to Shar. Yeah, we find Shar and we pray to Shar. Shar told us... Shadowheart tells us that we need to retrieve a weapon called the Spear of Night from the Silent Library before she goes any further, otherwise she won't be able to become a Dark Justiciar. So we have to find this Spear of Night before we travel down into the Shadowfell to what we believe might be Shadowheart's ultimate mission, to kill what is called the Night Song. But yeah, so obviously we find the spear. We go back to where Shar, the altar of Shar was, and then we end up going into the Shadowfell, which is Shar's very own realm. And we descend to a place where a final test awaits Shadowheart, and Balthazar, the necromancer and ally of Ketheric form, is also present and may pose a threat to Shadowheart's ambitions if we do not intervene. So we have this test, and we have this whole sort of situation where we can either kill the Night Song with the Spear of Night, or we can free the Night Song. This is after we've defeated Balthazar, the necromancer, which is obviously an ally to the main sort of antagonist of the story. So this is the point where I believe could go either of two ways. You can either kill the Night Song, which is basically a sort of angel Azamar lady. So you can either kill her or you can free her, and I decided to free her. Shadowheart was like, "Oh, this is like my destiny to try and kill this person." She gets the Spear of Night out and is about to sort of thrust it into him, and then she has these other thoughts and feelings as to like, maybe I shouldn't do this. And then we actually managed to talk her out of killing this potentially innocent person who's been bound to the Shadowfell for God knows how long, supplying immortality to Ketheric form. We managed to convince Shadowheart to not kill Night Song, and so by doing that, in spite of Shar's demands, Shar will basically no doubt be furious by this, and decides to sort of cast Shadowheart aside, and therefore become sort of exiled from the whole thing. You know, this whole moment that she's been building up to test herself for Shar, these pains that she's been experiencing, this mysterious artifact and all this, she finally gets to the point where she can become a Dark Justiciar, what she's always wanted to be. But then in that moment, with the relationships and the friends that she's made, and the innocence that she can see in this Azamar Night Song's eyes as she's bound to this the Shadowfell, she decides to spare that creature's life, and in so doing spits in the face of what Shar wanted Shadowheart to achieve. So this whole journey has led up to this point where she wants to become a Dark Justiciar. She wants to find out where that route leads, and that route leads to murdering an innocent to then potentially become this Dark Justicia. And obviously my character and the party and the relationships and stuff that we've built over time led her to this point, and suddenly she's like, no, I don't want to do this. I'm going to chuck the spear away, and therefore becomes like a reformed character, albeit conflicted for the next few sections of the game. She's very conflicted as to what decisions she's made, but this all comes to fruition in the end. So she casts away her Shah's heritage, her mission, her sort of what she believed her calling to be was, and then decided to just pledge allegiance to this Night Song, to this Dame Aelin, she's called. But yeah, we in so doing this, we do complete the quest line known as the Chosen of Shah. So we find out that obviously Shadowheart was the Chosen of Shah. She was there to try and kill the Night Song and not allow her to escape. But we convinced Shadowheart to obviously turn back on Shah's wishes and instead free Night Song rather than become a Dark Justicia. And of course, she may face dire consequences for her actions as a result of that, and she does. She really does. We'll get to that later. But yeah, we complete the quest line known as the Chosen of Shah, and ultimately, Shadowheart is now a reformed character. She's completely different. She's turned her back on what she's been following for her whole life, and she's now in a state of limbo where she doesn't really know who she is. And again, it's up to us to sort of solidify the fact that she's done a good thing. She's never meant to become a Dark Justicia for Shah. She's always been her own person, etc., etc. And we do have to really sort of consolidate that relationship as these revelations come to pass, which again is just great because I was just playing that sort of the shoulder that she could cry on situation, but the one that's supporting her throughout the entire journey, and that's what you have to do with this character. And in life, I should say. She also, as a result of freeing Night Song, one of the things that sort of turns the tide of Shadowheart sparing Night Song is that Night Song, or Dame Aelin, knows some secrets about Shadowheart's past and agrees to say, right, if you spare me. Obviously, Dame Aelin, Night Song, is pleading for her life at this point where Shadowheart's got this spear at her neck. She's like, I know things about your past that you don't know, and I can reveal those things to you. And that's also another massive thing, because at this moment the only thing we know at this point is that Shadowheart was taken in by the legions of Shah as a result of facing the wolf. Right, she was running away from the wolf in the forest, and then she was taken in by the Shah, and therefore, as a result, indoctrinated into their cause. But Dame Aelin, Night Song, is saying something different. She's saying, "I know things about your past that will make even more revelations come to light." And therefore, we saved her. That all contributed to saving her, and obviously, we have to sort of follow up on that thread because Dame Aelin has promised us that she knows stuff about Shadowheart's past. So yeah, we find out that Shah punishes Shadowheart by stripping her of all favours and exiling her from the church. And now all Sharans across Faerun will view Shadowheart as a pariah and an enemy, which happens later on as well. And all she can do now is seek out the Council of Night Song, or Dame Aelin, as she is known, and see what answers she can provide, because obviously she's got some secrets to sort of share with us. So yeah, as a result of freeing Night Song and Dame Aelin, what we do is we team up with this sort of Azamar Shining Angel character, and we do end up taking out Ketheric Thorm, and yeah, it's one of the main story beats, and one of the main battles in the game is against Ketheric Thorm. And I struggled with this battle quite a lot. It was when Ketheric Thorm basically assimilated the form of Lord Merkel, Lord of Bones, and that was an epic battle. In the Nautiloid ship. It was absolutely fantastic, loved it. But after that battle, after we sort of get the victory over Ketheric Thorm, we do have a little bit of a respite, and Dame Aelin says, can we come camp with you for the night? And I'm going to reveal to you, a bit of Shadowheart's past and all of this. And I'm just like, yeah, absolutely, please come to the camp and reassure Shadowheart that it was all worth it. The journey that she's gone on, the redeeming arc that she's going on, is all worth it. And it really is, because Dame Aelin hits us with an absolute revelation here. and she reveals the truth to Shadowheart, that she was not saved by Sharons as a child. She was not saved by Shar as a child, but abducted and indoctrinated by them. And furthermore, her parents are in Sharon captivity and are bound to their daughter by a curse, and the source of the pain that emanates from Shadowheart's wound. You know, so that is just an absolute revelation. An absolute revelation. She brings us back to a memory where the wolf that was going through the forest, seemingly after Shadowheart, is actually her father in a sort of wild shape form. You know, so her memories have been suppressed to the fact that she remembers the wolf, but she remembers nothing else of it. And it turns out that the wolf was her father, and the fact that the Sharons do have Shadowheart's family captive. So yeah, we have to take Shadowheart to Baldur's Gate to close off this section of her story and rescue her parents and free herself from Shar's influence. So Dame Aylin Nightsong coming in with an absolute revelation for Shadowheart's story, in the fact that she was indoctrinated and abducted by Shar rather than rescued by them. So that was a fantastic revelation to have in the game, and was like, yeah, okay, there was a reason we spared Nightsong. There was a reason why we got to the point where we were at, and we didn't become a Dark Justicia. Nothing was ever as it seemed with Shar. You've cast her aside now, and it's just plain sailing from here. You know exactly what you need to do. You need to save your parents that were sort of taken away from you and you were lied to from Shar. And yeah, this whole redeeming arc and this whole sort of heroic arc now that that Shadowheart is on as a result of casting away the shadow, which has some amazing parallels between Star Wars and Jedis and Dark Siths and everything. I absolutely loved it, and I really got that feeling of Knights of the Old Republic style thing. The sort of dark and light choices that you can do is absolutely fantastic. And yeah, that leads us to carry on the journey, to carry on trying to find Shadowheart's parents in Baldur's Gate, and we do end up there eventually in Worm's Crossing. And Shadowheart believes that the Sharon lookouts will be present in the vicinity, awaiting her return. So we have to find one of those lookouts in order to learn where the Sharon cloister is hidden in Baldur's Gate, and she expects us to find such a lookout hiding among the desperate new arrivals flooding into Worm's Crossing. So Worm's Crossing is like the sort of the gateway to Baldur's Gate, and there's loads of refugees there and what have you, and we have to try and seek out one of these Sharon lookouts. So we do find one of these Sharon lookouts. We find a guy called Ferg Droger, and he reveals that the cloister in Baldur's Gate is hidden in a place called the House of Grief in the lower city. So at this point we are all still trying to get into Baldur's Gate to continue the main story, but this is the main thread that's really progressing me in my game, is the Daughter of Darkness, and sort of finding out and sort of completing Shadowheart's arc as a character. But yeah, all the things that we do in and around Worm's Crossing and what have you in Rivington is what lead us into Baldur's Gate, and one of the first quests we are following up on is the Daughter of Darkness, of course. So we arrive at the House of Grief in the lower city after finding that, where the Sharon cloister is said to be hidden, and Shadowheart was greeted by an attendant, Miri, who told her that she was expected, and we must continue farther inside until we reach the innermost depths of the Sharon presence in the city. Only there can Shadowheart carry out her goddess will. And then we meet the Mother Superior character of the Sharon cloister, who turned out to be a Vicona Devere. She challenged Shadowheart to descend further into the cloister for a final confrontation. So everything has been leading up to this point. We've denounced allegiance to Shar. We are basically heathens in the cloister right now. We're the only ones really that have ever sort of turned our back on the Dark Lady of Loss, and suddenly we break out into this huge battle between the Mother Superior and all of these Sharon sort of acolytes in this huge sort of arena sort of style thing. It's like an auditorium almost. You got the Viconia Devere in the center, and you've got all of these Sharans around the outside of the sort of amphitheatre that all sort of descend upon you. And the battle was very hard. I had to sort of do it multiple times, but managed to use like a bottlenecking strategy. So basically, I scouted out ahead with Azalea. Azalea is my player character. She's a ranger. So I scouted up ahead, and then I basically didn't even get into. I tried multiple loads, right? I tried speaking to them, and there was no way to do it apart from combat, of course. So basically what I decided to do on the last time we did it before we succeeded was just go ahead with Azalea, shoot in a huge sort of electrical arrow into the centre, which then basically starts off the battle. Then I ran back up the stairs. There was like a long set of stairs leading down into this sort of amphitheatre area. Ran down the stairs of Azalea, shot the main enemy, ran back up the stairs after initiative order was tracked and all this sort of thing, and then got Will, the warlock, to cast Wall of Fire on the stairs, so that everybody that was then bottlenecking into the stairs to try and come up the stairs to kill us was then taking extreme fire damage on the stairs, all the while having a bottleneck where all of our heroes were standing at the top of the stairs firing all these spells and arrows and all this. And then the ones that did break through to the front line, Shadowheart was there, because at this point Shadowheart, I respect her into a fucking paladin, absolute light paladin. She's there with the spear of night, smiting people left and right, which is just absolutely awesome. I made her arc and her character class now sort of reminiscent of the journey she's been through. So yeah, this battle was just an absolute amazing end to this storyline, where the legions of Shar were just coming through the fire to the front line at the top, and then just getting smited left and right by this reformed Shadowheart. That was just in this white armor. You probably would have seen it on the thumbnail. I'll flash it up again now potentially, wielding the Spear of Night, but now the Spear of Night was called the Selûne's Spear of Night. So she has actually taken on Selûne's essence here, which is the absolute opposite, the sister of Shar, the Moon Lady rather than the Dark Lady, and just smiting all of these Sharans as they're coming up the flaming staircase. It's just a fantastic battle, it really was. And yeah, it's just a fucking great game, really is. So yeah, that all happened, and we beat everybody down there. We killed them all, and then we find out that obviously Shadowheart's parents are very, very close. We go through the main sort of door, and there they are. They're strung up. They're getting drained of their life force, and obviously connected to Shadowheart as well. And there is a huge decision here that we have to make for Shadowheart's story, and Shar actually confronts us. So we go to the parents, and obviously they're really, really happy that they could see Shadowheart for one last time before the ultimate decision that you have to make. And yeah, they're absolutely enamored by the fact that they've been holding on this long to see Shadowheart for one last time, and that's exactly what happens. It's a great moment where she finds her parents only to lose them again potentially. Well, this is the option that I chose. I don't know whether there is any other options for this, but basically when you're speaking to your parents who are strung up, the whole room goes dark, and suddenly you're met with this huge colossal figure, which is Shar, the goddess of pain and loss herself, and she gives you this ultimatum. She says you can either free yourself from the curse or free your parents. What do you want to do? So she basically just gives us this horrible decision where we have to sacrifice our parents or sacrifice ourselves, and that is a tough ultimatum for Shadowheart to really go through. Yeah, it's a tough thing to really sort of see after all this journey. Trying to see Shadowheart go through that as a character is tough, and that's where Shadowheart sheds a tear as well. The first tear we've ever seen her shed in this game, and I did as well. It was just a great moment, because obviously the story leading up to this point and the whole Daughter of Darkness thread ends with this moment where you have to decide whether to sacrifice yourself or sacrifice your parents to be free. of this curse, essentially, that Shah has inflicted upon you. And we ultimately, the parents were supportive. They were said, right, you've got so much more to do now. They mentioned Selûne as well, so they're obviously followers of Shah's opposite, the Moon Maiden, and yeah, we ultimately decide that, including the parents and obviously everybody else, we don't actually do anything. Actually, in this chat, we did nothing. We allowed the parents and Shadowheart to do her own thing. We didn't say anything, even though they were sort of prompting us to do so. The parents of Shadowheart were like, I'm sure your friends agree that, you know, we should be sacrificed. You've got a future ahead of you. And there was an option to say something, but there was also an option to stay silent, and that's exactly what I did. I allowed Shadowheart to just discover it on her own, and she got to the conclusion where that is what her parents wanted. That is what they want. They've seen their daughter one last time. That's the only thing that was their hope was holding on to, was seeing Shadowheart for one last time before ultimately knowing that, you know, Shadowheart has got a destiny ahead of her now as a warrior of light, almost. And it's exactly what I made her during this playthrough as time went on. Yeah, ultimately Shadowheart does decide to rid herself of the curse, but in so by doing, sacrificing her parents along the way, which was tough. And yeah, she shares all of these visions and dreams with us going forward, that she wants to live on a farm with loads of animals and flowers and colours and all of this, and she doesn't want to do it without us, because obviously the romance thread has still been there throughout. And there was one thing I didn't really mention, the romance thread. There was another moment a while back, after we defy Shah, where your player character and Shadowheart actually go for a swim as well, a naked swim, a skinny dip, I might add, which ends up in sex, essentially. So yeah, that happened also. I completely forgot to mention that. That was a great part of the game as well, actually, getting to that moment. But yeah, Shadowheart sort of shares with us that she wants to now sort of live in peace and all this, and she doesn't want to do it without us. And that was just absolutely fantastic. A great way to sort of close it off. And yeah, she ends the parents' suffering, and entrusts their spirits to Selûne. And now that they're at peace, she is free of Shah's influence, free of her past, and she can choose her own path at last. And that is when we complete the Daughter of Darkness questline. So yeah, absolutely loved it, and I'm sorry if this form of video is quite sort of all over the place, but I'm just essentially going through all of the recaps of the quest lines that we did in this, and it was absolutely amazing to see it all come to fruition. A great story, and this could have been the game, you know. Just this one story of Shadowheart leading to where it is now was basically the focus of my game. That's basically the focus of my game, was to help her and get her through her trials and tribulations. We have now done that, and we've still got the main quest to do on Baldur's Gate. But I just wanted to sort of recap this for everybody who has also potentially gone through this journey as well, because I think this is probably one of the best stories that I've immersed myself in for one of the longest times. I think it's been absolutely fantastic to really go through it, and this is just the power of stories, the power of characters, the power of arcs in any form of game. If you can relate to these things, if you can really go down that journey with them, that is why we sort of partake in these fantasy worlds, in these games, in these stories, because it's just fantastic to find out what happens on the other end. And the way that Baldur's Gate have really delivered this in the form of this story, in the form of the graphics and everything else, the facial expressions and everything with this game, has just led us to this moment, and discovering the Daughter of Darkness. So yeah, really liked it. It was absolutely awesome. I would love to just maybe do it all over again, and then maybe choose the dark path to see what happens if you do kill the Night Song instead. but maybe we discover that in another video again later on. But thank you very much for everybody who's tuned into this stage. This is something very, very different for this channel. In the past, this channel has been very, very Flesh and Blood related. If you're looking for a very character-driven trading card game, go and check it out. It's absolutely awesome. You're going to see more content on here for that. But there's going to be more content for this RPG, character stories, all this good stuff. We'll see it on Go Again Gaming at some point. And I'm going to have a really, really cool Patreon reward in the form of like a character art card based on this journey and based on what my Shadowheart character looked like towards the end of the game. And it's going to be like a sort of fan art anime style thing. If you're a fan of Go Again Gaming, you would have seen this already on like the banner and other things that I've done that are Flesh and Blood related. But if you become a patron, you're going to be able to access that as well. So make sure you go and check that out. Link in the description box below. But thank you very much for tuning in. We'll see you next time to do it all over again here on Go Again Gaming. Whether that's RPGs, card games, board games, whatever form of geekdom you may see it on this channel going forward. It's a good time to be alive. Cheers.